I need to test the material on my property when I'm ready to begin large-scale construction. Who can advise on material needed to pave a road? What type of material should I use when building a retaining wall? All of these questions can be answered at Construction Materials Testing Technologies that is ably operated by CEO Rance Blake. Today, he came into studio to give us some insight as to what exactly he does and why we need him and service providers like him. Yeah. So, Rance, welcome to Good Morning SKN. Good to have you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Well,
it is indeed our pleasure.
All right, so what does the job of a materials consultant include?
Well, first of all, testing materials, some people tend to associate it, especially soils. When people hear that we test soil, they tend to associate it with agriculture. Okay. Because that's the first thing would come to mind. However, you do test soil for other purposes, and we test soil for civil engineering construction. So take, for instance, if you're going to put up a structure, especially multi-story structures, or structures that carry a lot of loads, impose loads on the soil, we will have to test for the properties of that soil. So we'll test for engineering properties for that particular soil, that particular area. Because in different areas you would have different soils with different characteristics, having different properties. So we will do soil testing, that information, so we do investigation, we do borings, we do test pits. So we take samples, that's the first step. We do the investigation, we take samples, then we take the samples to the laboratory, and we run a series of tests. Now, for different projects, for different types of buildings, there are different applications. So you wouldn't necessarily do all the tests for this particular project. So the engineers would therefore provide us with the list of tests or the requirements for this particular project or this particular building. And then we'll proceed from there. So then we'll do the test now based on what the application is.
Okay.
Right. So we will do the investigation in the field, field investigation, then we move to the laboratory where we do all of the laboratory testing. That information now, once we have the raw data, we use software. There are special software, geotechnical softwares that we use. So we'll input that data in, and it would compute all of the information, and it will give you a graphs. And once we have that information now, we'll do an analysis. And from that analysis, we can generate a report, a written report. So once you compile all these information now, you pass this on to the civil engineers and or the structural engineers. So they now can use that information or implement that information into their design process. So we provide the data, the report, the analysis to the engineers so they can now design the structure based on that information. That information is also based on that particular type of soil. Because soil do vary. To the average person, you may just look at a soil and soil is soil.
Yeah.
No. Different soil have different load-bearing capacities, they have different characteristics. They behave different when subjected to saturation, moisture. They behave different in the eventuality of an earthquake.
That's a very good
liquefaction.
Yes.
So you have to know exactly what you're dealing with. And that is basically what we do in a nutshell when it comes to soil testing. Now that is just one aspect of what we do, and that is preliminary. So in the inception of any project, you would do the soil investigation. Once they have done the design, they will also know now how big to make the footings, how large to make the footings, how deep to go, at what depth they can have their footings and things like that. They'll also design the strength of the concrete based on the soil conditions. So once that is done now and the project commences, once the project gets off the ground and it's in full gear, we now will come back, once we are employed, we would come back and do what you call course of construction testing and quality control and quality assurance. Good. So what that would entail is all of the preparation, site preparation, because in some cases you may encounter material that is not suitable for the structure that you want to erect. So you may have to remove that material and bring in a more suitable or structural material, as we will call it.
So is this where the concrete testing comes in?
So this is where, I'm getting to that now.
Okay.
So in site preparation, like the example I gave, you may have to remove that unsuitable material, bring in a more suitable or structural material. So we now would ensure that that material, that new material that is being placed to support this now new structure is tested.
Okay.
So we will also test that incoming material to make sure it's approved. Because all of what I'm saying here is linked to and is based on international standards. So this is nothing I'm making up. And this is no guesswork. So we use, in our territory, we use the ASTM standards. Some projects, they request the BS standard, British standards, but we can work both standards. So the ASTM is more popular around here. So once we are provided with the standards, then we will test that incoming material to make sure that it fits within the specification that is required. Once that material is tested, we also do what you call compaction testing. So we would test the material to make sure it's compacted to the maximum degree, so that the building may have, would have a good support, right? So all that comes on the course of construction testing. So we'll continue to do soil testing, but of a different nature during construction.
Got you.
Once that is done, then they will probably start pouring concrete. They will do the reinforcement, and once concrete is being poured and we are employed again, we would come now and do quality control and quality assurance for the concrete that is being delivered. So there are a series of tests that we would do on site in the field to ensure that the concrete that is being delivered is of the standard that you requested. Question?
Yeah, of course. Because you mentioned the standards, the construction standards, if I'm not mistaken. And I'm just concerned as to whether some of the older buildings that we have in St. Kitts and Nevis that are erected, we see people adding structures to those buildings. And I'm wondering about the standards that perhaps informed that structure. Has that presented a problem, or could that present a problem for you in your work?
Yes, it can present a problem. You are speaking about pre-existing?
Yes.
Right. Yes, I have had some clients who have come to me who want to maybe go up another floor or expand on the existing structure. And yes, we'll have to come in and probably do some forensics and do some probably soil testing around the area to ensure that the changes that you want to implement can actually be done safely.
Yes.
Yeah, that is. Yes. So back to the course of construction testing. Once we are employed to do the concrete testing, the quality control, quality assurance, then we will go through these series of tests. When the truck arrives on site, we would probably do random testing, or we will test all the trucks. It all depends on the budget that the client has. Okay.
That's the quality.
Or it also depends on the specification. Some specification may require you to test every other truck. Some may require you to test every fifth truck. It just all depends on on what the engineers request. So once we have done the field testing, we'll take samples now. We'll take concrete samples, and we will take these samples back to the laboratory, and we will test these samples at different days. So take, for instance, if you're doing formwork, vertical walls, and you want to strip these early, then we'll do a 3-day test. So it will give you the strength in 3 days, and there's a certain percentage based on the concrete design that you would be looking for in that 3 days. Then we have 7 days, which is more popular, which will give you about 80 to 85% of that ultimate strength. So I'm not sure if you're familiar with concrete strength, but if you're building your home, you'd probably order 3,000 or 3,500 or 4,000 PSI. So that is how they sell the concrete That's how it's graded.
Okay.
Different strengths for different application. So we would test now in the laboratory that strength to verify that what you ordered, what the client ordered, is actually the strength that you got.
Okay.
And we do that for different reasons, not just for quality, because yes, you want to know what the quality is, but you also do that for finance reasons, meaning different grades of concrete would cost different.
amounts,
A
yes.
3,000 may cost $300, a 4,000 may cost $400, and
Yes.
so you want to make sure that if you paid for 3,500 or 4,000, that you're indeed getting that and not 2,500. Because if you're getting that, then you have a claim now.
Yes.
You can present a claim that, hey, I can't pay you this because I did not get this.
Exactly.
So we do that on behalf of the client.
Oh, okay.
And the other issue is quality, because if you're doing a 3-story building, and take, for instance, the walls, the vertical walls, and the ground floor is not up to that strength, then there could be a problem because you're now going to impose additional loads on that, and it may not be adequate. There are a number of equipments that I use. Some are more complex than some. But for the interest of our viewers, I will just deal with the basic ones. We have what you call a nuclear density gauge.
Okay.
And what this piece of equipment does, it gives you, or it reads the degree of compaction. And I'll explain. Take, for instance, you are doing a floor slab in your home, and you're bringing in material, soil, or whatever it is, and you need to compact that material, because if you don't compact it and you put the concrete on it, it can crack over a period of time, because you're going to walk on it, you're going to put your dress on it, you're going to put your appliances all on that same floor. So what we do, we test the compaction, because you know they have the little compactors.
Yes.
They go around with.
Yes.
So we test that now to make sure that you have that degree of compaction.
Okay.
Some engineers would ask for 95%, some ask for 100%, 98%. So what we do that testing to make sure that it's
Everything is
compacted properly before
okay.
you pour the concrete. So that's just one piece that we use. We also have, in the laboratory now, we have the compression machine. It's called a compression machine. And what it does is it determines the strength of the concrete. Previously, I mentioned that we test for the strength of the concrete. So that piece of equipment is what we would use to determine the strength.
Okay.
So,
Those are
Question.
the two.
Does that mean that if I'm seeing cracks in a structure, I should be concerned? Or does that happen over time?
not necessarily, because cracks can be derived from different factors, varying factors. It varies. So it may not necessarily be the strength. And in most cases, it's not the strength.
Okay.
It can be weather conditions. If you're pouring concrete on a very windy and very hot day, very humid day, then you can get that rate of evaporation, a very high rate of evaporation, and it can cause shrinkage cracking. And that is why you will see concrete cracking sometimes. But of course, there are measures that can be implemented to prevent concrete cracking. So it doesn't necessarily mean your concrete is bad.
I got you. I think we need to change this to Ask the Expert. This is the
I
end of the
know,
segment.
right?
Can we do that? Ask the Expert with Rance Blake?
So
Great, Rance.
what would you say would be the best day to pour concrete?
Because we live in the tropics,
Uh-huh.
that's a very difficult question.
Okay.
But what is suggested is that you can, let's say it's on a very windy day, you can put up wind barriers. So you can just erect a wind barrier to break the wind.
That's what that's for. Oh.
Yes.
Oh.
And
that's
on a
something
very
to
hot
know.
days, like I said, because we live in the tropics, it will be very hard to pick a day,
Okay. Okay. Got
pick
you.
a
got
day
you.
that you can
Yes.
pour concrete. You may not coordinate with the schedule that the concrete company is supplying the concrete. So what you can do in that case, they're what you call concrete admixtures. And most of the concrete companies now, they implement that concrete admixture in the concrete. It's becoming standard, so you don't really have to pay for it. You're paying for it, but you don't know you're paying for it.
Okay. So that helps.
That helps to reduce the heat of hydration and things like that.
Okay.
Then there's also what you call curing compounds, which would cost the client a little more. Most people would not go into that unless it's a hotel or big project, that you can apply to the concrete right after it's being poured. and that would eliminate the cracks.
All right, well, since you mentioned it, I'm talking about your clients. First thing, is your business limited to just St. and Nevis?
No, it's not. I have two laboratories, and the first one, the mother one, is here in St. Kitts at Port Zante, which I service St. Kitts and Nevis. And then recently, 6 years ago, I branched out into Antigua. So I have a laboratory there as well, a physical laboratory, where I service Antigua and Barbuda. And a small island right next to Antigua is called Jumbie Bay. It's a resort island. So I service those 3 islands in St. Kitts and Nevis. So I have 2 laboratories that.
So you're branching out in the OECS. Hopefully you.
Let's see.
Good stuff. So can you name some of the projects you have been involved in, and is there a credential arrangement at certain times? A confidentiality arrangement, I should say, sorry, at certain times.
Okay, yes. On Nevis, I've been associated with the Four Seasons Resort. Those are one of my main clients. And a few other clients that I service there. I also work with some of the concrete companies because I do concrete mix designs for them and consulting as well. On St. Kitts, well, I've been involved with the Koi project, Koi Hotel, Park Hyatt.
Oh, nice.
Park Hyatt, St. Kitts, and the cruise pier.
Oh, lovely.
That was just recently completed. The taxiway at the airport, they just installed a new taxiway at the airport. I did quality control, quality assurance for that project as well. And a number of other hotel projects, in St. Kitts that I have been involved with. And in Antigua.
Yes, please.
In Antigua, the Royalton Hotel in Antigua, I was privileged to be employed to do the quality control, quality assurance, concrete testing, soil testing for that project. And Antigua also recently completed a 5th berth, a cruise pier, to accommodate a 5th ship. And I was also privileged to have the contract to do the quality control, quality assurance, concrete testing for that project. And interestingly, the latest one is the project in Barbuda. It's called the PLH.
The big hotel.
Yes. Peace, Love, and Happiness Project. Barbuda Ocean Club. It's a very huge project. It's supposed to be like a $2 billion project. So it's like a resort. They actually have their own airport and things like that. So I'm currently involved in that one at the moment, where I'm doing consulting, quality control, concrete testing, soil testing for all of the subcontractors on that project.
Lovely.
So what is the most interesting thing that you've come across in your line of work? Because you've seen a lot.
Yes, I've seen a lot. But one of the most interesting thing, the most outstanding thing that I've had to deal with, let me start on the good side first. I was very intrigued when I went to Barbuda at first. There's this island just a few miles from St. Kitts, I think 35 miles from Antigua, 68 square miles, the same size as St. Kitts, with a population of 1,200 residents, with so much potential. And so, it's a very beautiful island. If you have ever been to Barbuda and been to the lagoon with those
frigate birds,
frigate birds, it's amazing. It's mind-blowing. And I was really excited because Barbuda was now basically on the map because these were now projects that come into Barbuda. And so I was really excited. So on that angle, yes, that is one of the most interesting things I've experienced throughout my career. On the other side now, I've had to deal with the pandemic. Because, no one expected this. We didn't see it coming. And it was like all of a sudden, it was a shock. Here was I traveling to Antigua sometimes every day, because at that time, you know, there were more flights. She would tell you. They had about 3 flights in and 3 flights
Yes.
out. So I was even able to travel in the morning and return in the night.
Yep.
So I was able to sleep home almost every night.
Yes.
But working in Antigua.
Yes.
But then all of a sudden, that just changed in 1 week. That just changed. How am I now to continue to keep my clients? There were several projects going on in Antigua at the same time. How would I now continue to service these projects, not being able to move?
Yes.
Because yes, I have a lab there, I have staff there, but the staff at that point was limited in the things that they can do.
Yeah.
For even a meeting, I had to travel for a meeting. And then the pandemics came.
Yeah, halted
suddenly.
everything. Yes.
So what would I do?
Wow.
What did you do?
What did I do? Well, first of all, like I mentioned, most of the projects in Antigua, they continued,
Yes.
you know, with restrictions. So I had to now find a way to communicate with my clients.
Yes.
And at first I didn't like Zoom. What is this? You know, I don't really like technology. So I had to now learn Zoom
Yes.
and communicate with my clients via Zoom.
Yes.
So we had meetings, you know, link ups. The other challenge I had was that some of my staff was not trained to do certain things because I would travel to Antigua just to do certain things in the lab. So I had to now train the staff
Via Zoom.
to do these things via Zoom.
Wow.
It was challenging.
Okay.
It was really, really challenging. And that is one of the things that I had to deal with throughout my career. And that was for almost a year and a half, 2 years.
Okay.
But you
So-
dealt with it,
I dealt with it.
thankfully.
But there's always a silver lining in every
Yes.
dark cloud because my staff now there are able to do things that they never knew how to do prior to COVID.
Yes. Good.
So they learn now how to operate without me.
Yes.
Good.
The other advantage is that I am able now to function basically at the same capacity with a low operating cost.
Okay.
When I would have gone Antigua 4 or 5 times a week, I can now go to Antigua maybe every 2 weeks
Yes.
because I've learned to operate without being there physically.
Yes.
So that was a silver lining. So I was able to make some savings, you know,
Yeah.
and that way that is concerned.
Good stuff.
That's good indeed.
So, Mr. Blake, if somebody wants to get in contact with you to do what you do, how do they get in contact with you?
Well, my cell phone numbers, the one in St. Kitts is 1-869-762-1000 or 1-869-662-3000. And the Antigua number is 1-268-724-5099. And my email address is cmttec@yahoo.com.
Nice.